thank you to our mini Hussainis. God bless you. It's such a beautiful effort and so refreshing to see such young children participating in mosque activities during these holy nights. So we'd like to welcome you to the Fiqh section. So Ali?
Yeah, so we're welcoming Sayyid Mohsin Shah, our very own Imam Hussein TV's Sayyid Mohsin Shah, who's shedding some light when it comes to the jurisprudential aspects of Muharram and Safar. Everything from makruh acts, everything from the mustahab acts, looking at things like azadari, for example, or wearing the black. So we very much appreciate his time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you? Everything okay?
I'm very well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me again.
Well, it's our pleasure, and hopefully our viewers like ourselves are benefiting from these discussions, and obviously your perspective on what is makruh, haram, mustahab actions, and they're quite important topics that it's a reminder for people every year. We get used to doing certain things, we're not sure why we do them, and we can forget what we should be and what we shouldn't be doing. So it's a brilliant opportunity for us to revive our belief. And so today we're going to be talking about fasting on the day of Ashura, which can be quite contentious, can't it?
Yeah. So there's a couple of differences of opinion, and there's also a question. I think it's probably beneficial if we just ask the question as a pretext to our conversation. And there was a brother from New Jersey, Jabir, who mentions, dear Sheikh Sayyid, many Muslims around the world, especially from other sects in Islam, and that's quite a key point here, on the day of Ashura, fast to honor the days that Moses and Noah were stopped from drowning. Recently, some Shias have also decided to fast on this day. So what do you think about fasting on the day of Ashura? I think there's a couple of things that we need to consider here. Number one, within the Shia sect and other sects as well. And number two, the historical basis behind that. So, first and foremost, from a Shia perspective and non-Shia perspective, what's your thoughts on that?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So, in regards to the Shia perspective on this, is that our Maraja, majority of our Maraja, and the Maraja at this channel, the spiritual guide of this channel, Sayyid Sadiq Shazi Hafadullah, he says it's makruh to fast on Ashura. And I believe a lot of the Maraja do have this fatwa that it is absolutely makruh, very, very discouraged that do not fast on this day.
Right.
Now, the other schools of thought, or the other jurisprudential schools that we have in Islam, have a different opinion, and they probably say it's very highly recommended to fast on this day.
Has anyone said it's wajib and haram, for example? For example, the other sects, would they say it's wajib to fast on that day? And with the Shia sect on the other side,
to be honest, I have read from some sources in regards to the Sunni school of thought that it was wajib at some point, and then it changed. Now, this may be because of a different opinion or different evidences being brought forward. This is why the rule has changed. And for today, the dominant ruling is that it is mustahab. With the Shia school of thought, there are rumours, and I have heard that it was wajib. I grew up believing it was not wajib, haram.
Yes.
I personally grew up believing that it was haram. You're not allowed to. But doing some research, it seems that no, it is actually makruh. And I mean, we had a discussion beforehand, and you were saying that to make something haram, you have to have a very, very strong basis and a very, very strong evidence, dalil from the Quran or from Hadith to support this. And to make something haram to that extent that if you were to do it, you will get punishment and torment for it.
Which is quite big, because fasting is a very, very good act to do.
It comes under ibadat.
So for someone to come and say to actually fast is haram, there needs to be a lot of, as you're saying,
if we do, we look at the Tarawih, for example, which is also prayer. But for Shia Muslim, it is haram, it is totally forbidden. But we have the hadith and the riwayat of the Rasulullah and the Imam to prove this. There's not much on terms of Ashura to make it haram.
So in terms, they're very two distinct rulings, highly recommended and very discouraged. Now, from my background, you know, surrounded in an area, we're minority Shias, and so news feeds, you know, social media, it's so recommended, and I'm honestly every year astounded by how much our Sunni brothers and sisters are encouraged to fast on this day. And we have the whole discussions every year why it's not. Is there a historical context, and why is it so important for them and so discouraged for us? What's the
They're the polar opposites.
Absolutely.
Indeed. I mean, to be honest, the reason that they have is to say that on this day, on Ashura, this is when the flood of when Noah built his ark and the actual flood happened. They also say with the, you know, what I call the 10 plagues of Moses, you know, one of them, the main, I think the main plague would have been the taking of the firstborn, would have happened on that day. And they were saying that this is you know, a day of azar, you could say, as in like torment and calamity comes on this day, and then they used to fast to, you know, refrain and to protect themselves from such torment and calamity. And thus the story goes that Rasulullah was asking the Jews, oh, why do you fast on this day? And they were saying that, oh, because of what happened to Noah, what happened to Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. And then Rasulullah said that, oh, sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he said that I have a greater status than Moses and Noah, and therefore I, you know, introduce this into our religion as well, that we should fast on this day as well. That's the riwayah, or that's the reason that the Sunni brothers and sisters that they use to fast on this day. How when it comes to the Shia jurisprudential evidence, you know, it's not strong. That we have nothing like this within our riwayah at all. In fact, it's the opposite. That is makruh to fast on such a day. And I think there is a link towards the Umayyads, because the Umayyads did fast after their so-called victory and killing of Bilal Hussein. And to do, you know, Baraka, to, you know, step away from and disassociate ourselves from the Umayyads, we have purposely, you know, not made it makruh, and not fasted on this day, as well as showing that even though today other people are continuing this and fasting on this day, we are not going to do it.
So fasting on, I have a couple of questions actually. One is a period between when the Holy Prophet, in his lifetime and after, between his passing and the occurrence of Ashura. What happened in those years in our terms of our books? Were the Ahlul Bayt fasting at that point? And then also on the day of Ashura, so you're saying we're disassociating with what the Umayyads have done. I'm presuming that you're saying that they fasted from that day onwards. And is fasting generally a thing to celebrate?
I think when you think of that you have achieved something, and in turn you are fasting, it sounds like a nidhr.
Right.
You know, that you've made some sort of contract or an agreement and a promise with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that if, you know, you take my destiny this way, I will return the favour with, you know, worship, which will be fasting. So I believe it's along those lines. I could be incorrect. It could be something totally different. And it could, as we know, you know, that the hadith and the evidences and the riwayat in the Sunni school of thought was actually promoted and backed by the Umayyads. So obviously there'll be things in there to benefit themselves and to, you know, you could say, push their agenda.
Sure.
So maybe you know, it came through that.
So it became
channel.
more of an action to do post Muharram. So we're actually going back into historical terms. It possibly goes back to those events.
Yes.
So we're.
And back to your first question as well.
Yeah.
I haven't come across anything
Sure.
in terms of after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and, you know, to the Ashura, in between there of any of our Imam fasting on the 10th of Muharram. We do have riwayah to fast on other days. I mean, in Rajab and in Sha'ban, there's so many different days. It's also recommended to fast on a Monday and a Thursday, because Rasulullah used to do that. Also on the 1st, the 15th, and then the last day as well, to fast on those days. There is a great emphasis on fasting, you know, because it's very, very good for health purposes.
Excuse me.
But, you know, so like you were saying before, Alifah, that it sounds a bit weird for, you know, to make fasting makruh.
When it's such a
highly recommended act, but there must be a reason. It must be a very, very significant reason for our ulama to say on this day, makruh, please stay away from it.
Do you know, in a historical aspect, whether, so from the Sunnis' perspective, where they're saying that, you know, Prophet Noor, Prophet Musa had these actions, are there other times that they're talking about previous prophets, that our prophet also emulated their activity and said, okay, we're going to fast on this day? Or is it just Ashura that we have this, you know, dispute about whether you should be fasting? Is this...
I mean, like I was saying before, Rasulullah used to fast on the Monday and the Thursday.
But that wasn't based on other prophets, was it?
Yeah, it wasn't based on other prophets. If you're trying to say that, are there any actions which were inherited by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that was based on other prophets? We do have some actions, but technically, all the prophets were practicing these acts. We have the cutting of the nails, cutting of the hair, combing of the hair, growing the beard. This was really promoted by Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. But even Rasulullah carried this on. So did all the other the prophets.
Thank goodness.
They were doing things like this.
But that's like, you know, general hygiene. It's about the piety of a Muslim. But fasting is quite a statement.
We haven't. I don't believe that there is anything we have inherited directly from any other religion. Our religion has always been the main foundation of all the Abrahamic faiths.
Yeah.
And our jurisprudential lessons and our jurisprudential rulings have always been the foundation and the pillar of all Abrahamic faiths. For example, to abstain from pork like the Jews do, to abstain from alcohol, you know, and to worship. Even, you know, the Jews worship 3 times a day, in the morning, afternoon, and night. Very similar to the way we worship in the morning, afternoon, and night. Same with, you know, we have a concept of fasting. Jews also have a concept of fasting, and the Christians also have Lent. So there are there are a lot of similarities. I don't personally believe that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has tried to inherit or take from any of the prophets. I haven't come across.
Quite an odd statement, isn't it, to say, "Oh well, if they've done it and I'm better inheritor,
I haven't come
I'm
across
going to do
any riwayah or any, you know, Quranic evidence to prove that, you know, he just said, "Oh, do you know what, they're doing it, I'm going to add it on," or this or that. Our faith has always been the foundation, and it's always been the, you know, like the original pillar, you know, of monotheism of our Abrahamic background.
Just for time's sake, I really want to get this question in because, you know, we always sympathize and we grieve the fact that Imam Hussein and his whole camp didn't have access to food and water. So for us to actually fast kind of makes sense, but we understand obviously it's makruh because of the historical acts and everything that we've discussed. So is there a time frame where people do fast or refrain from something?
There is an alternative to fasting, which is actually highly recommended.
Right.
In our language, we used to call it faka shikni, where you would refrain from eating and to some extent drinking as well. Just those 2 things.
Yeah.
Eating and it's not like you're fasting as in you're staying away from your
everything else.
Everything else.
Yeah.
Smoking being one. Not that I will condone and say you can smoke, don't stay away from cigarettes. But they would keep, or, you know, they would abstain from food and drink from Fajr to Dhuhr time, which was, you know, roughly the length of the Battle of Karbala, which started at Fajr and it was ended by Dhuhr time. So you would abstain from eating and drinking there, just to honor and also to feel what you know about Abdullah and his companions went through. Not to forget, they actually hadn't eaten or drinking for like 3 days.
Yeah.
And not to eat extravagantly. That's quite a theme, isn't it? In centres, that was very plain
very
food,
simple
isn't it?
food,
Simple. And I think
I remember on Ashura, is halim is served. I think every Pakistani mosque is halim, and halim is like a stew of lentils and meat, but very minimum. All the other days you're going to get really nice food and very because people are donating in the name of Abdullah. They don't want to give something that's mediocre. But on Ashura, it's specifically it's like, you know, a very simple, a very poor dish, you could say, because it's also to understand that, look, this is not a day for us to feast.
Absolutely.
You know, this is a day to remember about.
Thank you so much. We have come to the end of our time this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Have a blessed day, and please keep us in your du'as as well.
You too. Thank you.
We definitely would love to carry on the discussions around the fasting, because I've got 3 more questions in my head, just that alone to ask. But
maybe next time.
Maybe next time. But definitely, we look forward to our next session, where we're going to be speaking about another controversial topic, which is going to be very interesting to look into. But for myself and Zahra and Said, we thank you for your time, and thank you for watching Morning Baraka, and we hope that you have a blessed and mournful Muharram and Safar as well. Thank you very much for watching. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.